Welcome, Tip the Walls, Talking Buffalo. Don, how you doing?
You're back. Doing well.
We are back. It's part 2 of our offensive line extravaganza, and we get into the drought era. Buffalo Bills. As a reminder to people, you were the director of football administration from 2005 until 2017.
Right.
You started with contracts and all the behind the scenes stuff in the early 2000s after you finally got rid of me. So let's roll. All right, so we're gonna go to 2001. And the starting offensive line, John Fina, Reuben Brown, who we both talked about in our opening episode. Billy Conity, a guy who was there when I was there, really hard worker. I was actually happy for him, even though I had left the organization, that he got a starting job in 2001. Really pleasant guy, and it seemed like one of those guys who didn't have as many physical gifts as a lot of the other guys, but he worked his ass off, and he became a starting center in the NFL. So I was always rooting for him. And then I got to tell you, Don, this name I don't remember at all. Corey Halsey.
Oh, yeah, Corey Halsey. I didn't realize that he started, but I know he was from Gainesville, Georgia. Actually connected with him on Facebook and or LinkedIn, I think. And he knew a friend of mine that lived in Gainesville, Georgia, but real Southern guy.
Another one of those Southern guys.
Typical Southern, yeah, but the connection I have is he knew my friend Larry Page. He ran into him at like church or something. Said, "Hey, I met a guy that used to work for the Bills, and I remember Corey. Tell him I said hello." And
interesting,
but I honestly did not remember that he started. Good for him.
And then Jonas Jennings.
Yeah, he was I think a second round pick and very very good player. I want to say he
started right tackle in 2001, and then went to left tackle for 02, 03. Yeah. So 3 years as the starting left tackle of the Bills.
The team didn't want to lose him. He was a very good player. I think he might have made the Pro Bowl, went to the 49ers and was made the Pro Bowl with the 49ers. And I think from the University of Georgia. He was kind of that Ruben-esque kind of, at least in terms of knew he belonged right away, had no trouble adjusting to the big stage.
Did he get too high of a price?
He got paid, yeah, more than
they wanted to pay.
Yeah.
Were the Bills in that era, like when you started as the director of football administration, were they known around the league as cheap?
I mean, Mr. Wilson made it clear to the team that he would spend. It was cash to cap. Greg Thompson can talk about this more, but that go ahead and go. You can max out on the cash, but be creative in how you handle the salary cap. And
did it feel like you guys were fighting at a disadvantage against other teams?
Not if we took him at his word that we'll spend it, but there was an underlying, but spend it wisely, meaning if you spend all the cash, don't come crying to me that I told you couldn't do it.
So how far under where other teams were spending that cash to cap rule that people would remember from back then? Like how much money would have been available if they would have gone balls to the wall of the salary cap?
How
much are we talking? $10 million a year?
Well, there was a fluctuation. I mean, there was times that you were over in the offseason, and you just knew that when you made the 53-man roster by the end of camp, you had to be under. But some teams would be under, $10 million. You have to account for injured players to be able to replace them, and it's tough. It's tough. But
it's too bad that you're at a disadvantage. You're in Buffalo, so you're already at a bit of a disadvantage free agency wise, and like a recruiting issue. And as the team got further and further away from the Super Bowl years, it was harder and harder to get guys here. And then if you can't pay them top dollar too, because your owner is miserly, that's tough. Like that's a recipe for not making the playoffs for that many years. You can see where it starts, right? Those aren't the only reasons,
right? Yeah,
but it doesn't help.
No, it definitely, you feel some headwinds, but at the same time, you just gotta, hope that the moves that you make, pan out and guys stay healthy. And
your salary always fit under the salary cap.
Mine did, yeah.
You were not a cash to cap guy,
I don't
right?
think they had too many special meetings to discuss.
Did you ever have an option to get like any incentives or anything in your contract?
No, we always used to joke about that because, on the other side of, in the marketing department or whatever, they would be incentivized to sell suites and sell sponsorships. And when we saved the team money, there was no reward for that. We would joke about that.
And nothing tied to the performance of the team.
Only when you make the playoffs, you know,
Sure.
we talked about, and that was it. I mean, you knew if we can make the playoffs, you're going to get paid nicely, and that's why, you know, it's tough not.
That's why you only have a 3-bedroom house right there.
Well, it's 4. I found out the hard way because
All
of code. I had to get a bigger septic tank.
Oh boy.
Because they didn't.
All right, let's
consider
keep
that
moving.
4th bedroom.
Let's you know,
I
that
got penalized for it.
okay. Thank you, town of West Seneca.
Erie County. Yeah.
Let's keep moving here.
Right.
So we go to 2002. Reuben Brown is still on the offensive line, which is pretty amazing. And John Fina's last year was 2001. So
Okay.
Jonas Jennings moves to left tackle to replace John Fina, and we have Reuben Brown, Jonas Jennings. Trey Teague is the new center. Talk to me about Trey Teague, who spent a number of years here as the starting center.
Yeah, he was a nice free agent pickup from the Broncos. Kind of thought it was a steal to get him. He was a leader. Came in and you know, I think he played a few years, solid center.
Okay, and now my favorite story from If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo, our however many episodes we've done together. The starting right tackle, Don, by the way, for the 2002, 2003, and 2004 Bills was a 4th overall pick from Texas. His name was Mike Williams.
Yes, it was.
What do you remember about Mr. Williams?
There was a lot of Mike Williamses.
Yeah, there were. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. He were there people in the room that didn't want to take him?
Well, I mean, I wasn't in the room. I found out later that some people, including trainers, wished that they would have asked them because they talked to the trainers at University of Texas who had some questions about things.
Sure. His motivation, work ethic, etc.
Yeah. So where I got in trouble was in a meeting. I don't want to rehash it too much in case people that have been listening have heard it before, but essentially I was asked after day 1 of a 2-day set of meetings, personnel meetings that I was part of, to drive Mr. Wilson back to his apartment, where he asked me about said player, and he was clearly fishing for any information that he could get about, you know,
it makes me laugh every time.
Underperforming, you know, this guy paying all this money. He was mad because there was a day in training camp where that he shared that Mike Williams, he was walking around St. John Fisher, and Mike Williams was walking toward the practice field, but clearly practice had already started.
So he was late.
And he was like,
okay. What's this guy doing?
What do you do? Yeah, why aren't you out there?
Sure.
And Mike Williams, his answer was most unsatisfactory. Something like, I just wasn't feeling it today, or something to that effect, or I'm under the...
And there's already a bullseye on this guy's back. You're the 4th pick overall. You're getting paid quite a bit of money back then.
Yeah.
Was that still when there was no rookie salary cap?
Kind of. Yeah, you still had to quote slot him. You weren't allowed to say that.
He was making quite a bit of money.
Well, he got masked a bit because he, you know, clearly was coming out as a starting left tackle, but they put him on right tackle in 2002 when he played okay. You know, the goal was for him to ultimately, you know, move to left tackle. I forget who was playing left tackle then, but whatever.
Jonas Jennings.
It was Jonas Jennings. Yeah, right. You just said that. So, but you know, as the years evolved pretty quickly in the second, third year, like, wait, he might not be that guy.
Did you know right away when you met him? You're like, oh, this guy doesn't have it. We've talked about that there's guys you can tell right away either they do have it or they don't.
The one thing that got me was that was a year I was in the locker room after practice for something. I had to go see a trainer or something, and Mike Williams started freaking out about they started to allow women reporters in the locker room.
Oh boy, okay.
And he just wasn't ready for it. He's like, this is not
really
what's going on. And I don't know why he was so surprised and no one else was, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But every guys that were there were like, oh man, he just lost it. He was like, this isn't, you know, what are we doing?
Really?
Yeah. But
just one of those guys that just didn't have it.
I don't know. He had all the tools. So he had great feet and all this.
So
stuff,
famously, you shared, you know, a couple of stories with Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Wilson then
he banked it in a way that I didn't know he was going to bring it up the next day to start the meeting.
And you then held court.
He made me repeat the story. It was essentially that I told him, he said, what do you think about this guy? And I was handling paychecks. Guys came up to pick up their paychecks before direct deposit. And I told him that Mike Williams casually asked me, he's like, hey, who do I talk around here that's like a finance guy that can help me find a way to get like a 5% return on 100,000? And I'm like, well, Bill Munson's really good over there. And I think he actually went to talk with him. I just remember thinking, and I told Mr. Wilson this, like, you're talking about $5,000. Like if this guy just his first contract is
sure millions.
If it gets a second contract,
It's tens of millions.
What? Why are you wasting your just play good football?
Right.
Hold on a second. Can we pause this?
All right, we are back. Sometimes real life gets in the way. Everything's fine. All right, so you texted your daughter and told her to call so you can get out of the Mike Williams story, right? That's how that went.
No,
very nice, Don.
I was in
very well done there. The emergency 911 call to get out of the date, the bad date. So you single handedly sunk his career, and we'll move on from there. You know what? 2004. A name that will be familiar to Bills fans and NFL fans. Ross Tucker.
Oh yeah,
was the starting left guard. What do you remember about him?
He was most knowledgeable about the CBA than any player that ever came through. That includes Troy Vincent.
Wow,
when
really?
We had Troy here as the league union rep. Ross knew more about the CBA than him, and he grilled me. Like it would be about if a guy got cut on a Tuesday, if it mattered what time he was cut, because if in certain cases, if it was too late in the day, you'd still have to pay him for the whole week.
Were you the guy, kind of the conduit between the players and the administration? Like you were the guy that the players would see, right? You were like,
I was the first line,
pick up the paycheck, etc.
Right,
so you got a lot of the player bullshit.
Yeah, I was the first line.
Not that Ross Tucker was bullshit, but there's
he was legit. I mean,
but it was some of the complaints.
It was a pain, but it made me sharp. But yeah, they would ask me, assuming that I did all the contracts, and I only did some. I did some rookie contracts and a few others, but I was the one they saw all the time. So they would ask me, and most of the times I could answer the question. There were times though, it'd be like, you know what, we're gonna have to run this one up the chain a bit, but good question, and let me take it from here, and we'll get you an answer.
You were the customer service booth for the player.
Right.
That's that could be a thankless job. So you're not surprised at all about how he's done in the media.
Not at all.
And
he's a Princeton guy, and maybe I wasn't sure. I didn't realize how savvy he would be, how good he would be in the media. But I would never have doubted his intelligence. But it's translated to it's a package deal.
We got two more interesting names here in the mid 2000s. You're going to have to help me with this one because 3-year starter at right guard, Chris Valerio.
He was from Paul Lancaster knew him because he was a Division II player from either Cal. I should know this, or my daughter played in the PSAC, Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference. And she played at Edinburgh, so she played at all these schools. But he was, it was on the western part of Pennsylvania. I want to say it was Cal. Maybe it was even
Indiana of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Of Pennsylvania.
That's what it was.
Okay. So interesting. Anything stand out about him?
I mean, he felt like he belonged. Obviously, he must have been a big fish in a small pond at IUP. And Tom Gibbons went there.
IUPUI, right? Isn't that what it is?
Is that what it is? Something like that, right?
Okay, interesting. So 3-year starter.
Yep.
The other name here, unbelievable. Started with the Bills in 2005 as a right tackle, and he's still playing in the league.
What?
Jason Peters.
Oh my gosh, Jason Peters.
He is still playing.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, absolutely, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's no doubt. He's still playing.
That's with Dallas, right? He's 40 years old.
20th year in the league.
Oh my gosh.
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle. Okay. I remember he came in the league as an undrafted
tight end. Arkansas,
I think. Yeah, he made plays right away. Played special teams. I remember he had the trifecta. I think he blocked a punt, picked it up, ran it in for a touchdown. And then the team just got so fortunate in a lucky way because they somehow from that ended up getting their franchise left tackle.
Yeah.
Where it should have been the guy in 2002. Ended up being a guy in 2004.
So you're taking the credit for this. I like it. No, I like this. I like how this goes. We've evolved.
Lucky.
You found Jason Peters. Amazing.
I didn't find Jason Peters.
You cleared the spot for Jason Peters.
I did his. I actually did his rookie contract, which was nothing but I remember his second year in camp when they moved him to offensive line. I want to say might have been Jim McNally who took credit for this, but there were a whole bunch of agents that came and they weren't. I think they thought there might be fresh meat there, where they were going to get in the ground floor and try to recruit him because they heard he was being converted. They must have heard from the team.
I was going to ask you, so you're on a rookie deal as a tight end, as an undrafted tight end.
Yeah.
Did he get a bump? Did he get anything the second year when you moved to left tackle and you start?
He got redone. Yeah, and it was very performance-based. And I don't think it was a second. I think it was after his first year as an offensive lineman, which was his second year in the league, I believe. Okay. And then the team knew they had to, and they put a performance-based, incentive-laden contract in, and he hit them all. He crushed them. But the agents that came to St. John Fisher were like, we got to see this guy. It's almost kind of like The Blind Side. Like, we heard about this freak that has feet.
Did he change agents?
Do you know? I think he upgraded to big time.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. And then, of course, he was the guy the team couldn't. I remember he held out, and I was in my office. My office overlooked One Bills Drive, and I remember the big story in the spring was, would he show up? Would he show up? So I want to say it was John Murphy and Chris Brown were doing a show right out in the parking lot, and I right before they went on the air, I texted Chris Brown and I said, "Hey, Jason Peters just drove behind you, past you," and he was like, he stopped in the middle of it, and I'm like, "Just kidding." He's like,
funny,
because that would have been a scoop.
He had made the Pro Bowl in 2007 and 2008, and then just they wouldn't pay him. Did he not want to stay?
Think well, it was odd because there was a year during Jik Duran, we're trying to figure out what to do with him, and I was part of a personnel meeting there, and I remember saying, like, he's all about money. I didn't say this. They were like, he wants to get paid. It's the money. And I remember saying something's odd because he hasn't picked up his last 5 paychecks. They're still sitting in my office. I don't think the money itself is really the thing here. I think it's the love of money or the pursuit of money.
Sure.
But
or the prestige of being paid.
Yes, exactly.
Was he paid as the highest offensive lineman in the league?
I think so. And I remember Dick Tron came to me later. He's like, that was a pretty interesting point you made. I was glad because I didn't say a whole lot else during the meetings. But he's like, it kind of gives us an insight into what he's thinking that hopefully will help us. It didn't. He ended up taking the big money, you know.
Can't blame him, really.
But and I remember he was a real quiet guy, but I remember just a few years ago in 2017, 2018, and our little company was doing some business with the Eagles, and I walked in the building and I saw him. And he's like, "Hey, Purdy, what are you doing here? You working for us now or whatever?" And like, where did this guy become so talkative? You know, he really grew.
It had been 10 years probably since you'd seen him, right?
I was really surprised that he recognized me. Yeah.
Wow. So, wow, that's good. Anyway. All right, so we roll into like 2007, 2008, and some tough looks here. We got Melvin Fowler at center, if you remember.
I do.
Langston Walker was the right tackle for a couple of years, and then the notable name here, Derek Dockery, big time free agent, right?
All 3 of them were free agents. Melvin Fowler came over. He had been the starting center with the Browns. Kind of undersized, smart guy, but when you think of Kent Hull and you think of some other centers and you watched him, you're like a little bit of like, you think Jim Richard, but without, like, he's like, how does he sustain every play just getting blasted in the face by a nose tackle,
right?
And Langston Walker was mammoth human being, played right tackle, and he was from where was he? One of those California free-spirited universities. Where was it?
Free-spirited university.
You know what I'm talking about? Like a little flower child kind of.
The University of California.
Was it just Cal?
The Cal Bears.
It was just Cal. Okay. Well, he was a guy that just a little bit the opposite of Glenn Parker. It would have been interesting to get a libertarian Parker and the like it was a very left wing. He came from Langston Walker. You know, always. It would have been interesting to get those guys in a room to have a debate.
Again, just all different types.
For sure.
It's all you get every type of person
you do.
In an offensive line room.
Yeah,
it's really amazing.
He was mad at me, Langston Walker, when we got stuck in Cleveland for a game, and we couldn't come home because of the snow in Cleveland, actually. So we ended up driving home. We ended up spending the night in Cleveland, driving home the next day on buses. And somehow the hotel staff, even though I had no idea that morning that they were going to have to provide a meal for the team at night, and then the next morning they did it. They pieced together a pretty good breakfast, omelets and all that stuff. It was good. And we got back to Buffalo, and he was like, hey, we never got a per diem for breakfast. I said, they provided breakfast at the table.
And the per diem's what, $40?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I said, I'm pretty sure we satisfied the CBA with providing you breakfast. And he goes, oh, no, but there was no something.
Oh,
there was it was missing one part that normally is part of a breakfast. I said, look, I think Troy was still with us. I said, if you go talk to oh no, he goes, I'm going to call Troy Vincent because he had left the team. I said, go ahead. Call Troy Vincent and tell him we had this argument.
This is over like $40.
Sure.
From
it
a
was
man
the principal,
who's making
millions. Yeah.
You're the customer service window for the players.
Call Troy Vincent, and if he tells me that we owe you guys $40, we'll have that conversation, but I'm pretty sure he's going to not.
Wow.
Yeah.
You go through some of these names. Demetrius Bell replaced Jason Peters at left tackle.
7th round pick. The craziest thing, Josh, is I remember he came in. He was a 7th round pick, I think. And I'm looking at him across the table. I had maybe a road game, and I'm like, I can't believe I am sitting here looking at Karl Malone. It was his son,
right?
But they had Karl Malone had nothing to do with him.
And you thought he looked like Karl Malone?
Wow. Exactly. Paul, we were all like, that's the mailman. That's Karl Malone right there. That's
right. I totally forgot about that.
And he's ended up starting a little bit, but we hardly ever talked. But I guess they had a real strained relationship, which is too bad.
Wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Would have been better to just pay Jason Peters. I mean, when you go through some of these names, and so then we get to 2009, and a guy very familiar to Bills fans, the radio color guy for the Bills network, Eric Wood.
Oh yeah,
a friend of yours.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you met him?
Yeah. I remember he came in with Andy Levitri, and they were very highly regarded. First round. I want to say first and second round picks. I think we might have had 2 first round picks.
Yeah, playing left guard and right guard. They both started.
Yeah, and now Eric Wood came out for Louisville as a center, All-American center, and but the team had signed Jeff Handgartner a couple years or as a pickup from Carolina. He'd been their starting center, so he didn't get to play right away. But then I think Handgartner got hurt. Eric Wood went in and was immediately you could tell like a Pro Bowl caliber center, a team leader. And you hear him on the radio today, just how smart he is. I mean, he was always that smart.
Sure.
Yeah, had a couple horrific leg breaks, 1 in 11 when we were really cruising. But then he had an earlier one, I think, his rookie year that was kind of like Joe Theismann-esque. You don't want to see it more than once. You don't want to see it at all.
He's the second best center in Bills history, right?
Yeah.
Like pretty clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not Ken Hull, right?
There's Hull, and then there's Wood,
and then there's quite a gap to number 3.
Sure,
he's the clear number 2.
I don't see how you could see that any differently.
Right. So he obviously has a great career here. Here's a name that you got to talk to me about here.
Okay.
Mansfield Roto. Anything? Did
he start?
It was listed as the starting right tackle in 2010. Mansfield Roto.
I remember him, but I did not realize or remember.
He was born in Liberia.
That he ever started a game.
Interesting. I just didn't,
I do remember him, but if you would have said, did he ever start or not, even money, no way I would have remembered he ever started. There had to be a few injuries ahead of him.
So as we reset here to 2011, it's Chris Hairston, Andy Levitri at left guard, Eric Wood at center, Craig Urbick is the right guard, and Eric Pierce is the right tackle. And Eric Pierce was the right tackle here for 3 years and then transitioned to guard. So he was here for a while.
Yeah, he was a pickup from Denver too, another free agent that was kind of middle of the road, but ended up being a serviceable starter. The other 2 guys.
It sounds like, when you lose Jason Peters, it looks like when you go through this list, we talked about in our DBs episode, the amount of draft capital, the amount of money that they threw into defensive backs time and time and time again. Man, the offensive line, Eric Wood, good player, borderline Pro Bowler guy, made a Pro Bowl. But for this 5, 6, 7 year stretch after Jason Peters, not one Pro Bowler, and really other than that disastrous Langston Walker money, Derek Dockery got money too, right? It seems like after that, for like a 5-year stretch, they didn't put any money or any assets into it.
It's a good point about the DBs. We talked about that. We talked about earlier in an earlier episode about the team clearly understanding the need to replace Will Wolford with John Fina and using draft capital there, which paid off. And then Reuben Brown came in. I don't know what the team had lost prior to that to make that such a need, but clearly it was addressed. But it just never really was after Jason Peters for a while.
Yeah, like not one top end guy.
No, like Peters was a mid level.
Levitri
he started with Levitri he was good. He ended up being a Pro Bowler when he left the team to play for the Falcons.
I feel like I hear that a lot.
Yeah, he was really good. He just couldn't. Yeah, kind of like Chris Lesney. I was surprised we didn't make a play to keep him, but it seems spent the money in other areas.
So we roll along into the 2010s.
Can I vent too about something?
Do it.
I don't know what your internet browser is. Mine is, it's not Internet Explorer.
Chrome.
You have Chrome, and there's another one.
Okay.
And
Safari.
Safari, is on my desktop, and the home page comes up. And I think you called it clickbait before, but it's like,
oh dear,
can you believe this or that, or what this actor looked like?
Sure.
Or can you? And then they're so over sensationalized. But there's one that talks about the biggest busts in NFL history, but it doesn't have a name on it.
Okay.
But the picture is clearly Paul Posluszny. And there is so far from.
No, he was not a bust.
Not even close.
No.
He was a really good player here.
Did you click on it?
No.
Good.
I didn't, because I didn't want to keep getting them. But I remember, I almost feel like Paul Posluszny should have a lawsuit or something for saying it's free speech or whatever.
It's an interesting choice of a player, because it's not even like a really well-known player outside of Buffalo, right?
Well, he ended up, he was a high-priced free agent from Jacksonville.
Sure.
Got a second contract there. Was a really good player. And Bills didn't want to lose him, but he was the poster child for.
I'm glad that kicked your habit of clickbait. I remember when you told me that.
I'm
like, Don, I'm like,
you felt like I didn't click on it.
You felt like a grandfather. I'm like, don't touch that. Don't touch that.
Anyway,
Don.
sidebar. Sorry about that.
You know what? They're messing with you via the internet. That's gotcha. Gotcha. So the 2010s roll along here, and we're into the Chris Hairston, Andrea Levitri, Eric Wood, Craig Urbeck, Eric Piers. Like I said,
Levitri and Wood were real nice players.
The next name here, with some significant investment, Cordy Glenn came in as the left tackle, and he was the left tackle here for 5 years.
Didn't realize it was that long.
Tell me about him.
Serviceable starter,
but not Jason Peters.
He was supposed to be, but Jason Peters was a freak. At 5 years, that's nice. That's good. I don't know what happened after his 5 years here. I probably should. But
he left after 2016.
Yeah, I don't know where he went.
Okay,
if he went anywhere,
and then it went right to Dion Dawkins. And Dion Dawkins has been the left tackle since.
That's the first current player we've named, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it went. In the last, it's interesting. In the last 12 years of Bills football, it's been either Cordy Glenn at left tackle or Dion Dawkins.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Dion Dawkins, because we kind of did a current player dirty on our linebacker episode by not mentioning Matt Milano.
Yes, agreed.
I don't know how that we just slipped through our cracks.
Sure, and you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
Right.
I was actually, like, for a week.
And Tremaine Edmonds.
He had a nice play. He had a nice play for the Bears last week that should have helped the Bills in the standings.
Yes.
But those guys should have been mentioned.
Absolutely. We have a little bit of a blind spot for the current team.
Right.
These
so
old things.
We apologize to the listeners.
So it's been Cordy Glenn and then Dion Dawkins all the way through from 2012.
I didn't realize that was the line of succession there.
Was he? Wow. Boy, he wasn't to be the starting left tackle for an NFL team for 5 years.
If it says anything, I would have thought it was 2 or 3.
Okay, that says enough.
5.
That says plenty. That. Speaking of saying plenty. We're going to move into your guy here, Richie Incognito.
Yeah.
All right, let's spend 5 minutes on old Richie here. Give me the good and the bad.
5 minutes, but I remember the first time I ever met him was actually his rookie year in 2009, believe it or not. The team was decimated with injuries, and it was like a month left in the season, and the players usually saw their position coaches, but they would eventually see me on the first day, and to know where to be paid. And I remember Paul Lancaster, the director of player engagement, had already seen him, and he's like, "Hey, I got Tommy Boy coming your way." And I'm like, what? And he hung up. And he was like giggling. I'm like, what is he talking about? Sure enough, all of a sudden, this guy comes around the door of my doorway, and anyone who knows Tommy Boy, Chris Farley, here comes this huge chiseled version of Chris Farley. Like, oh my gosh, I had no idea who he was.
Sure.
He had been with the Rams, I think, and cut and this and that, but we needed somebody. And I guess the first I heard on the field, his first home game, all the players, like our own players, were like, "Who is this guy?" He was losing his mind. He was like, "Let's go!" And screaming like
was he like that?
Veins out of his
around the building?
No,
like during the week?
Not at all.
Just
not at all
between the lines.
But I didn't realize. That was like a month in 2009. For all I knew, we weren't gonna. I don't remember what happened after that. But then he famously had the incident with Miami with the whatever he got into it publicly. He got in trouble for the things he said for hazing. The kid from Stanford. Yes. Who didn't take it well, and he got fined. I forget. It was not a good PR incident for him, but I guess so the team took a chance on bringing him back.
He was the Rex Ryan special, right?
Yeah, and now they told Eric Wood, and Eric Wood will say this. He's like, "Look, they told me, Eric, we're bringing in this guy, but you need to be there for him the whole way. We're literally assigning him to you."
Okay.
And Eric's like, "Oh, okay." He goes, let's do it." And he turned out to
he made the Pro Bowl.
He was great around the building. Great player. What a reclamation project.
He had to probably feel like it was his last chance.
He was given a second
chance
in
the NFL. Okay.
And he played it as perfectly as he could have. It was such a pleasant surprise.
He's like the ultimate Rex Ryan guy. We had IK.
Right.
Same kind of thing where bring this guy in. Yep. I can fix him. And sure. Frankly, with Richie Incognito, it worked.
It did. It did. And then he was even a good player. A little slip up there, I think. Something had happened
with a funeral home, right? Or some weird, weird thing.
Want to know, but I've talked to Eric a bit here, a few years ago, and he just said, he still keeps in touch with them, and great friend, and but remembers when he was brought in, like we're bringing him in contingent upon you saying that you'll be able to really
a guy like that. Is that a real easy contract to get out of if something happens? Like, do they structure it where, hey, you're already at 2 strikes, one more strike, you're done?
Yeah. You make sure historically you have to pay attention to those things. You don't want to. You look really bad if you get stuck. When there's some incident that you can't get out.
Sure. Yeah. Couple more names here before we wrap it up. Shantrell Henderson. 2015 right tackle. 2 years he was here. 2014, 2015. Another late round guy, right? Well, they seem to get addicted to that Jason Peters.
Shouldn't have been, though. Talent-wise, he was played at University of Miami, got in trouble for weed to the point where I think he was kicked out of school or something. But I remember in the draft room, I usually would come in at the end of the 6th round, beginning of the 7th, and was waiting there to handle the free agent signings, for a couple hours of madness. But it came up to the 7th round, and one of our scouts, CJ Leak, was sitting behind me for some reason. I was already up in the room. He was even behind me for some reason. And it came up to that pick, and you see the board, and you see 7th round now. I see all the tags are gone. 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, 4th, 5th. There's a couple names as 6th round projections. The 7th round is still like halfway done. There was one lonely name tag sitting there in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
And CJ Leak was like, take him. And he went down. He was like, I was with him. I talked to his mom. I talked to his family. Let's do it. And he convinced the team to take Shantrell Henderson in the
7th round. It's probably worth the gamble, right?
Absolutely. And it was Doug Marrone was the coach, and he ended up starting at right tackle. And I remember the first game we were in Chicago, and we won. Fred Jackson had that big stiff arm, and Shantrell Henderson I was on the bus already, and Shantrell Henderson, I think it was his grandmother, came to the game in Chicago, and I remember she just gave him a big old bear hug, like, you did it, you kept yourself in such a way that you made the NFL, and then, but a couple of years later, there was an off the field incident that he slipped up, and I kind of got called into it because it happened. At the apartments that we had put the rookies in.
Okay.
And somebody smelled something underneath the door. And so I got called into a rookie meeting, and they had switched rooms, so they got blamed on another player.
Oh.
And Marone told the whole room that I'm supposed to tell the apartment if they ever smell a whiff of anything again, give me a call and you're gone. And
he was gone.
Well, he didn't slip up again, but I don't know what happened. But then the poor guy, I really liked him, and I was rooting for him. But then he got this is not a HIPAA violation because it was on the injury report, but severe stomach issues that he couldn't.
Oh, really?
That he just couldn't. He could barely function beyond playing the NFL. Real sad because I don't know what would have happened to him, but that's not.
Couldn't get a second contract.
No,
obviously.
No, it was tough. I felt bad for him.
It's kind of crazy if you think about it now. Like, it feels antiquated, even though it was not even 10 years ago about weed. I know that there's still an NFL policy, whatever else. I get it. But boy, what these guys go through physically and what I've seen in locker rooms, it feels like to me that's really antiquated that they're not allowed. I know it wasn't legal back then, but I saw players shooting up with God knows what at halftime of games with needles. And you can't tell me that whatever that was, Percocet, whatever it was, wasn't stronger or more harmful to them, than weed. So I guess I always err on the side of these guys put their bodies through hell. And if on a Tuesday or a Monday they need some relief and the ice bath isn't enough, who am I to tell them, hey, you can't smoke a joint? That's just my personal opinion on it.
I know
you don't want them getting hooked on pain pills.
No, it's even worse, right?
Of course it is. Yeah. And like that to me, weed just seems like the least of all the evils. And if you're enjoying football and you're enjoying seeing these guys, beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
There's got to be some. To me, it just seems like there's got to be some acknowledgement of what they go through and what they put their bodies through. These are human beings. And 17, 18, 19, 20 weeks a year. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And when you've been down there and you've seen it and you see what they go through in the training room and everything else, like, I don't know, is weed the worst thing in the world? That's just my opinion.
No, I hear you. You're right. What they get shot up with. Yeah, it's too bad.
So, going towards the end of your time here, 2016, the last offensive line that you were the director of football administration, Cordy Glenn, Richie Incognito, Eric Wood, John Miller, and Jordan Mills.
Jordan Mills, I was starting right tackle. I don't remember.
And he ended up staying for 2017 and 2018 as well.
Did he? Good for him. He was kind of nondescript. Obviously, if he stayed in the starting lineup, he was doing something right.
Anything on John Miller?
Yeah, I remember John Miller was a right guard. I remember in London, he had to go home on the Friday night because of an unexpected death of one of his parents.
Oh, so he didn't.
So Paul and I.
What a terrible flight home.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we were the only time all week we went into London, and we just gotten there by train. It was about an hour away, and Paul got a call that John Miller's. I should know this. One of his parents had passed away, so we were like, "Hey, there's the tower or whatever," and jumped right back on the train. Came back because we had to get on a flight to go back.
How much does a flight like that cost? Any idea? A couple $1,000,
$1,200.
Okay, last minute.
But I had his passport. Like I had in a safe. I had all the players' passports in a safe.
Now, did the team pay for that flight home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. But that's not a salary cap violation. It's easily defensible.
And now,
yeah.
Do you remember? That brings up an interesting question. Do you remember anybody taking like a game off for an odd reason? Obviously, birth of a child, death of a family member. Was there any other, like, hey, they missed the game because of personal reasons?
Yeah. Funerals were a tough one because the team policy, immediate family.
Yeah, mother, father,
when you
wife.
Start getting out, but that's my uncle, but he raised me.
Yeah, right, sure, and that could be valid. How do you dispute that?
It's the head coach.
It's the head coach.
It's all the head coach.
Okay,
yeah.
I feel like, did anybody ever say no to a request?
Yeah, we had we had a player. We were in Oakland, I want to say in 15. And I remember there was a player. He was a tight end. I shouldn't remember his name. But he had the birth of a child. But
Not Charles Clay.
It was Charles Clay.
Okay,
I think it was. And I think we found out he didn't make the team flight. But if he had the baby earlier in the day, we were going to even send a private jet for him because we were like, I want to say 7-7 or something, still had a chance in the
hunt. You were in the hunt.
Yeah, and he was a starting tight. Yeah, and I remember Paul, get this flight ready, and then Clay was like, yeah, I don't know, and I can't even remember if he came in the next morning.
So it's all gray area and really head coach dependent, right?
Yeah,
on any of these,
right?
Interesting. Did you feel like it? Because boy, I don't remember in the 80s and 90s, like it kind of wasn't a thing, was it? That you missed games for. It feels like it's gotten more,
probably more so. I mean, back in the 90s, I wasn't as involved, but to remember,
but boy, I don't ever remember except for when Bruce Smith missed the game with the flu. You don't remember anybody ever missing a big game for
anything other than
a funeral
an injury,
or a death or whatever else.
I mean, Brett Favre famously played
when his dad died. Right? Did you ever miss a game for any reason? Like a game you were scheduled to be at?
Never a regular season game. I missed one preseason game for my cousin's wedding in Montana, and it was.
Did you need an act of Congress to get out of that?
No, it was. I knew months in advance, and I just said, "Look, I'll go the day before, a couple days before, come back." Preseason, I wouldn't have ever asked if it was a regular season game.
Sure.
I missed weddings and things for regular season games of family members that that was tough, but it was what you signed up
for.
A
regular season game, you are not going to miss it. Like it would have taken a death of someone significant for you to miss. Right. I just the expectation, especially being staff, I feel like there's probably a little bit more wiggle room for a player. But somebody like you can always be replaced, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's always 25 people waiting to take your job. So so the expectation is that you're going to be there, and every single day. Like, I mean, how many? You probably never. You didn't take many sick days.
No. But it was. There were some, that was tough. That was a judgment call because you're there and they don't want you to infect other people.
Sure.
But I don't know why. Knock on wood. I very rarely remember taking any days off for being sick. Never missed a game, but yeah, no.
Never missed a game. That's impressive. Home game or away game?
Home game or away game, regular season.
I was going to say playoffs, but
depends when it was. Yeah, right?
Sorry. So before you got let go, boy, the last game that you were not a member of the organization was the final game of the 1987 season. Whatever game that was. Well,
in 88, I was in college. I got the internship.
But you were there on game days at home.
Yeah, but I not the first one. I watched that on TV. I remember.
Interesting.
It's Thurman Thomas's first game, and it was against Minnesota. I wasn't there, but then for the rest of those next 4 months,
so you never
I was there.
So you never missed a home game after week 2, 1988, all the way through 2017. Is that correct?
Regular season, right?
And you haven't been to one since.
No.
That's pretty crazy. That's a sharp cutoff there, buddy. Right. Wow. Any final thoughts on the O-line?
And you, I mean, being right in the heart of football, the coaching staff. I mean, can you imagine what it would take to not be?
I would have had to have, because what I've thought about that. I lost both my parents early, and my parents would have wanted me to be there for the game. I think. They wouldn't have wanted me to jeopardize my position or standing or whatever else. Like I thought about that a couple times. Like, hey, what if I still would have been in the NFL? Because my parents' health issues would have come up either way. Right. And knowing them the way I did, and I think they would have wanted me to. Now, if it's your kids or your wife, that's a little different. But I think I would have been there, and then you take care of it on the Monday or Tuesday after. Because my dad ended up in the hospital. The 1 year, and I left and I caught some shit for it. And it's like, really? Like, this is a Tuesday afternoon. Like, but that was the way the NFL was, right. And probably still is in a lot of ways.
Sure it is. Yeah, it is.
But you're going to be there.
Yeah.
And being sick was just not an option. Like you just didn't. I don't have time to get sick.
Yeah, they have a virtual pharmacy down in the trainer's room, and they know what's legal and what isn't, but they have all the bases covered.
Yeah. Well, I would guess maybe it's a little different now with like staff, especially like if you're sick and coughing and stuff, they don't want you on the plane.
No, they don't. And I remember other people didn't make trips because they, but I remember Scott Birchtold missed one or two, but he said, "Don't worry, my guys got it. They know what to do, but I don't want to infect anyone." It was like appreciated.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? All right. What? Let's set the line here before we leave. Will you return to the stadium before it's gone? There's 2 more seasons.
2 more seasons. What's
that's even money. Even money that you would tend to get. I feel like you have to go back once before it's
I see what you mean. Yeah,
before it's knocked down.
Now that you frame it that way, I would probably take the over on that.
You take the over of half a game that you got. I feel like you got to go back in there one more time.
Yeah, boy. Though, if you hadn't framed it that way, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. But now I feel like that
there's only 2 more seasons.
Right. Wow.
So there's only 16 more regular. Oh, there's 17 after this Patriot team. There's only 17 more home games in that stadium.
That's crazy.
Unless playoff games.
That's crazy.
So think about that.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but now that you have,
yeah, and that last home game is going to be something.
Yeah,
I feel like I mean, I'll definitely go back at least once or twice more, but that'll be something.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if that last game. If somebody thinks it could be a playoff game.
Sure.
Yeah, however that plays out.
The ideal scenario clearly is to have it be the AFC Championship game. Get the trophy presentation on the field during the, because the last time the Bills won the AFC Championship game, you were hanging out with your buddy OJ in the locker room. So, right. maybe end on a high note there. We're going to, please like and subscribe, follow Cover One, and follow us at If Buffalo on X. Thanks, Don.
Well done. All right. Thanks.